Now, without any further ado, I would like to introduce Chuck Purgason. Chuck.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone coming out on a night like this, but you're coming out because you care about your country and the direction that it's going. I almost feel like that at the end of my talk, I'm going to pass a collection plate around. I'm sure that line's been used in this building before, but seriously, I want to thank you for coming. You know, as I travel across the state, and the cameraman said I have to sit in one spot, and I'm not used to that. So as I travel across the state, I see everywhere just people are frustrated with the direction they're going, that our country's going in. It seems like the one thing that the people that we've elected have in common is they all have the inability to balance a checkbook. Because what you and I see happening in our country today, we're beginning to lose what we hold dear and what we are supposed to pass, a type country that we're supposed to pass on to our children, our grandchildren. It's becoming very unclear with the debt that's being called upon them, what type of country we're going to be giving to them when it's their time to take over. You know, it's very humbling as you travel across the state to talk to people. You know, because you find out that the silent majority out there, we've talked about that in the legislature. One of my jobs as an elected person was in helping candidates was when they come into the Capitol, begin the process of taking them under your wing and talking to them and trying to let them understand what they're there for. And one of the things that I've always tried to tell my new candidates that I've been trying to help is when you're sitting in committee and you have a lobbyist come in, you're going to have lobbyists on both sides of a bill. But what you have to remember is the silent majority of people that work hard that don't have a lobbyist. And they're the ones that get stuck paying the bills for everything that appears in front of them. And we call that the silent majority. And I think what you're seeing is the silent majority across the state and across the nation beginning to wake up. And if the silent majority ever wakes up and becomes the vocal majority, we can go a long ways in taking our country back. But I'm going to start out a lot of people don't know much about me, and I want to start out with a little bit of background. I was born and raised on a small farm near West Plains. My mom and dad, I never did say I grew up because my mom and dad raised me. You know, they had us in church every Sunday and Wednesday night and Bible study. So that, you know, that's what you do. A good parent does is they try to do their best to raise their kids. I was blessed that in the 80s, my wife and I started a small business, and we started our small business from scratch. And if you understand that, we rented a house, paid $100 a month for it. The porch was where we began manufacturing trophies and plaques. The kitchen was the engraving room. The dining room and the living room was where we boxed and shipped everything out. We began the process of growing that company, and we ended up with 6 employees and a building that we built on our farm and was able to ship into 48 states and parts of Canada through that. So it began the process of an idea and grew into a good company that supported my wife and family. You know, and that's what we miss about America. You know, nowhere in America can a person take an idea and build on it and be able to work and foster that company and work at it and make a little dream become a reality. You know, and we take that so much for granted today. Well, in about 1994, I began the process of learning the things about FICA, FUTA, Missouri unemployment, all these people that had deductions from my paycheck. In the process, and I said I had 6 employees. We had 4 hired employees. My wife and I was employed. And I would not hire a 5th employee because it fell under workers' comp and begin that process. So I began understanding the ways that government hinders small business from growing. Of a person becoming an entrepreneur and going out and growing a company. So I began thinking about running for office. And about that time, there was a lieutenant governor from Arkansas named Mike Huckabee, spoke at our Lincoln Days that I attended, and then also spoke at our church the next day. And what he talked about was reasons people need to be in the government. And it began the process of, I'm the type that I don't ask somebody to go to do something, I do it myself. So I began the process of deciding to run for state representative. My wife and no one in my family had ever been involved in politics. My mom and dad had always instilled in me to get out and vote. They would always vote, encourage, tell us as kids that it is our duty to vote, that everyone that doesn't vote needs to walk through a veteran cemetery and see the white crosses of people that gave the ultimate sacrifice for you to go down 5 minutes and vote. And so I began the process of setting up and running for state representative. Didn't know anything about politics. And I saw that Bill and Lois Linton was there. Eagle Forum helped me a lot in my first campaign. So we began the process of organizing grassroots. I don't like to brag, but our candidate that we run against was the picked candidate of the party, and my party actually worked against me in the primary. But, and I, at the time, I didn't know what party I was going to run with, but I read the platform of the Democrat Party, and I only read about a little bit of it and decided that I was a Republican, and I was a conservative Republican. And that's what's frustrating about now is what I see as our party beginning the process of not standing on fundamentals and foundations of what our party was founded on. So I started running and was able to, got outspent like 15-1, but was able to win my House seat. Served 8 years in the Missouri General Assembly in the House, and was able to move over to the Senate, and I've been 6 years in the Missouri Senate. Well, I had a dream of 2012 was when I was out on term limits. And I was going to begin the process of going home, and my people asked me, what are you going to run for when you're through in the Missouri Senate? And I said, I'm going to go home, I'm going to grow my beard long, I'm going to write nasty letters to the editor. That was my dream. Because I did 60 years of service in Missouri, and I deserve to go home and write those letters, and because I went out and tried to do the best job I could for the people, and then I get to come back home and live under the laws that we passed and the type of state that we created. So that was my dream. But in January, February of this year, when the seat came open for Senator Bond's seat, I was waiting for a good conservative to run, and what happened is it didn't happen. Someone that I believe that I could work for and go out and try to do the best job I could to get elected didn't come forward. And I began the process of thinking, the Republican Party to me is the last great hope for America, but only if we get back to the values and beliefs that the Republican Party always stood for. When I became a Republican, it's because of fiscal responsibility. The number one thing in the Republican platform is fiscal responsibility. And I was one of those that went out and worked hard, and I'm going to tell you why I'm doing this. Because one of the people say that what you're doing can damage the Republican Party, having a contested primary. But I remember something my dad did when I was 10 years old. The neighborhood boy that always got you in trouble. Come by one day, and he stole a pack of cigarettes out of his mom's purse. And he says, let's go smoke these cigarettes. So we went out to the back 40. There was one big old oak tree in the back 40. And we sat around that tree smoking them cigarettes. And I want you to know, I did not inhale. But I did smoke. But I didn't know it at the time when my dad was watching me through a pair of binoculars. And that night, when I walked in and he had informed me what he had done, that night he put me through a tobacco cessation program. That it did not cost the government a dime. But my dad, I remember he walked in with a Peachtree switch and he said, son, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. And he says, I'm doing this because I love you. Well, I believe in the Republican Party. And we got our spanking in the last election. Because I think we got our spanking is because we did not stand on our principles of what the party was founded on. And when you look back on it,